If you had to pick the number one thing you struggle with the most around the greens, what would it be? Is it distance control? Is it clean contact? Is it the yips? I'm going to show you today how to fix all three of those problems and more with the GForce training aid. This wedge I've used for many, many years, showing my students how simple the short game can be when you let the club work for you instead of trying to fight the club. The number one thing that I see most golfers do is try and force the club to do something they want instead of letting the club swing the way it was designed to. My favorite way to demonstrate this is pick any golf club you have, hold it up by the butt of the club and just let it swing back and forth like a pendulum. Now you can see that the club's going to bottom out in the same spot every single time as long as I don't try and do something with the pendulum, with the pivot point at the top. That's how we get like the motion of a grandfather clock. If this pivot point at the top is moving all over the place, or I'm trying to push it, or I'm holding it tight and moving it around, that's when golf becomes really, really challenging. But with a training aid like this, with a very flexible shaft that allows you still to actually hit balls, you can get the feeling of that pendulum motion that allows the club to bottom out consistently in the same spot every single time. And that is one of the most important keys to short game. When you're working on your short game and you're using a GForce club like this, the first thing you want to do is get a feel with each hand independently of swinging the club back and through and letting it just lightly brush the grass. Where most golfers struggle with short game and struggle with consistent contact is they start pushing the club down into the ground with their right hand, because most of us are right-handed. And so we get really dominant, and that's when you start getting a lot of fat, chunky shots where you lay the sod over the ball, or maybe you blade it because you yip it at the bottom. Both are caused by too much tension and trying to control the club. You want to get a feel for the club swinging, and so go back to that pendulum motion where the club's just swinging back and forth, and try to create that same motion without letting your shoulder move at first, and get the club to swing back and forth, lightly brushing the grass. Once you get a feel with that with your right hand, you can do the same thing with your left hand, holding the left shoulder in place and letting the club swing back and forth. Now, as you put both hands back on the club, you want to let a little bit of body motion come in there as well, but still get the same feeling of, instead of trying to push the club down or hit down on the ball, let the club swing back and forth. And that's what's going to allow you to make really clean, consistent contact with your wedges. And this shaft being soft and flexible, if you start to try and force the club, it's going to bend, it's going to release at the wrong time. And so all of a sudden you're going to start to feel, when you start to add too much right hand or be too aggressive with it, all of a sudden that shaft is going to deflect and you're going to feel it right away. And that's what's so great about this training aid, to help you develop a sense of feel and letting the club work and release on its own. So as I work through that, when you're working through this, you want to make a few practice swings, just getting the club to lightly brush the grass. My hands are very, very soft as I'm doing this, and I'm just trying to get a feel of the shaft loading, going back, and then letting it release at the bottom. And that's key as you work up to hitting longer shots with the wedge. At first, you may find that the ball tends to go to the right. That's extremely common when working with this, because so many golfers try and cheat and push the club through, and it slows the club down and it makes consistent contact really difficult. So work up to distances. Don't go out there at full speed and just try and wail away on it. Hit some little 10-yard shots, 15-yard shots, etc. Just like this. Let the club swing back and through. Nice, delicate, soft little shot. Hit maybe 15 or 20 of those and get a feel for how the shaft wants to release. It should be going straight. If you find that even on these shorter shots, the ball's leaking out to the right, it's because you're trying to force that club through and you're not letting it release. So again, soften up your hands, take that picture of the pendulum, the grandfather clock in your head, get that club releasing. And then as you start working up to full shots, again, make practice swings and go nice and smooth, work on your rhythm and tempo, and letting that club release. This is going to be the key. If you're one of those guys driving it through as hard as you can, the ball will never ever go straight. It'll always leak right, because the shaft hasn't had time to unload and square the face. But as you get comfortable with it, you'll find that the club, you'll feel a natural release as you allow your hands to stop pushing them through. You allow the club to release, and your hands actually have to slow down for that. And working on that with the wedge is a great way to develop a feel for a proper release. This will help you smooth out your tempo, smooth out your transition, and get consistent contact, all by using the GForce wedge on your short game and in your full swing.